Hello,
Hello.
welcome. It's the semi-final ting, week
Oh my
9 of
God.
10.
It seems like it's been going on forever. I mean, I suppose technically it's been going on for 9 weeks, but it seems like it's been going on forever.
Well, you think? Well, I first thought the first 3 or 4 weeks felt like that, but then suddenly we're now at week 9, so I don't know where the last 3 or 4 weeks went, but I felt it
Well,
zipped by.
I think for me it's because it's the end of term. So
Ah,
everything has been, dragging to the end of
yeah.
term. And we've still got another week to go. And I think we said before it started a little bit later this year because normally it's over and done with by the time the summer holidays start. So yeah, I think it's a combination of things for me.
Yeah, and it would normally have been done by now. Well, it would have
Yeah.
started mid March, and we would have been done wrapped up by May. Welcome anyway. If you've just joined us, if you've not seen our show before, we go through the episodes of the Great British Sewing Bee, and we talk about the makes. We try and analyse them with our wonderful creative background that we have, and we've been doing it all season. Many of you have been watching from the beginning. Many of you have been watching from past seasons. Many of you in Australia or New Zealand, I think, are a couple of series behind, and you're watching season 8 at the moment. It's all go. It's all good. But here we are. Yes, we're at the semi-final. Before we talk about that, you know the procedure now. We always have a quick look at the comments from last week, and boy, you just came up trumps, as always, with some stunning messages. And I've got a little selection here to talk through, Ting.
I must
Now,
admit, I
go
read
on.
them, I think, on Saturday and Sunday, and then I've been so busy, I haven't gone back to them this week. So
That's all
I'd read
right.
there was quite some good ones by the weekend.
Absolutely. Now, something came up that I completely missed. Because I think we were we were like WhatsApping away, and then I've got a WhatsApp group with the ladies who are going, "Oh, what do you like? What do you like?" And then with Carol, and I'm like trying to watch and take notes as well. But I missed this bit. So let's have this message here from Sheena. As
Sorry, I've got the
others have
wrong glasses on.
Oh, right, I'll read it. As others have commented, the sewers were allowed to cut the made-to-measure, the smoking jackets, if you remember, out at home. And then she rightly, I say, don't know. Then says, so if Vicky had her measurements wrong to start with, remember, Vicky's was a bit too short and a bit too tight, there was nothing she could do on the day. Now, I completely missed that, Ting. Did you?
No?
No, you got it.
They
Okay.
did. They've said it a couple of times on the made to measure that they've been able to cut things out. And I appreciate that saves a bit of time, but normally the made to measure is done on the second day. And therefore, if it takes 5 hours, if it takes 7 hours, why not allow them to cut it
Yeah.
out so it is made to measure? Because
Well,
if you have even if you're out by half an inch, it doesn't have to be massively so. Everything then it'll all stack up, and then eventually it'll all look way out of
yeah.
kilter. So
And
yeah.
Sheila goes on to say as well, I would like to know how detailed the measurements they get are. They seem to get the same models each time. Obviously, it's the first time they had men, but we have talked about this before with their main models. You would expect the made to measures to get better, as Sheena rightly says, because they get in tune with their bodies as the weeks go by. I think we said that last season, didn't we? Like they keep the same model.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a similar question or a comment from Charlotte, who says, another great review, thank you. So pleased to see male models, but how can you do a made to measure when you've cut the fabric before fitting your models? How can you possibly make a smoking jacket in this amount of time? 2 slippers were thrown there. I have made a smoking jacket, took a week. But yes, it is an interesting thing, isn't it, about cutting the patterns out first, and maybe have they been sent the measurements of those models, those male models of the smoking jacket, and then if you've got to fine tune it, you've got nothing there perhaps to fine tune with. Difficult, isn't it?
Well, and I mean, we don't know what the true kind of procedure is because maybe they're told a measurement and then, if it was me, I'd potentially cut it one size bigger so that you have got a little bit to work with. Because, how far in advance are they given those measurements? You know, if it's a month later, things could change. So, I felt that I mean, I don't, like I said, we don't know what they're told, but I'd probably cut it a little bit bigger, because you can, of course, always take it in. You can never add back to it once you've cut it.
And also, actually, when they say they were cut out earlier, were they cut out just 2 hours earlier before filming started? So they had the models.
Oh, well, exactly. What if that was the case? What if, the I don't even know what it was, 5 hours, 7 hours or whatever. If that started after they'd come in, measured their models, allowed them to cut everything out, and then it was like, ta-da, now the time's going to start.
Another question that I said I didn't know when Patrick said this was peached fabric. Well, as always, our commenters, our viewers come up trumps. It's actually called peach skin. Peach skin is a type of fabric, and it has a soft, furry feel like a peach skin, hence the name. Well, that makes so much more sense when you say it like that. It's got that, she says, that feel, that furry nature of the fabric. And you could see that from that picture of Lauren's, couldn't you, last week? That grey charcoal. Yeah. And for those, also a bit more information here from Nikki. Also, peach skin fabric is a luxurious microfiber fabric that is 100% polyester. This soft and suede-like fabric can be used in numerous applications. It does remind me of those fake chamois leathers.
It does make you wonder if it's 100% polyester, how well it breathes, because basically plastic, isn't
it? Now, a great message that came up, which I will read to you, because yes, it's a bit small, but it develops from Sold. Almost everyone thinks Asma is the favourite except this channel. Her sewing skills are the best, though her sewing skills are the best, though she may lack a little creativity at times. And then I replied, so I'm going to move it up a bit. Oh, really? Fascinating. The wonders of discussion shows, hey? You get to hear so many different points of view and opinions. She will be in the final for sure. Do you want her to win, or do you have a different fave? And get ready for this for an answer.
Oh, no, you've started a war.
Lizzie was my favourite until she sadly left us this week. She hadn't necessarily qualities to be in the final at least. Asma is my sister. So I'm naturally biased. She needs to get more creative, though. So how is that? That's amazing, isn't it?
And to be fair, we've never, we've appreciated Asma and her sewing and how wonderful it is.
Absolutely.
And I think, we've said all along that this year they've all pretty much on an equal footing.
Yeah.
And we saw even that more so last night as well. But, these last 2 or 3 weeks, Asma has really been able to pull it through in terms of the quality of her sewing. Although, we'd argue, I think if you go back to that first show that we did, that she did exceptionally well in that first sew as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Maybe because we talk about a lot of people, and when you get your favourites, so her favourite was Lizzie too, like me. We perhaps gush over them rather than the actual sewers who are.
So her favourite was Lizzie, even though Asma was her sister.
I know. Yes, let's just double check that again. Yeah, Lizzie was my favourite until she sadly left us this week. She had the necessary qualities to be in the final at least. Yes, then Asma is my sister. Wonderful. Now, this was a really good spot by this commenter. Angela, great show again, guys. As I've said before, I'm Team Tony, so always think he's been underrated. No, but this is the best bit. Have just noticed something. Remember Claire, who was a surgeon, I believe? She was an accurate, excellent sewer all the way through. Then Serena, the medical student, I think a great sewer all the way through. Now Asma, again a surgeon. Great sewer from the first week. So let's just say beware the medical profession on the sewing bee. Because it does look like that, doesn't it?
Well, I'm sorry, but they should be good sewers. I don't really want to be walking around with half my intestines over my arm.
Oh, dear. Yes, yeah. I think I said something similar. I went into, you might see, viewers, my scar on my face.
No one can see that on your face. You're paranoid.
I had a mole checked out, and they said, yes, it's looking like it's getting bigger. As you do, right thing to do. And they said, we'll whip it off. And they said, "Oh, we can whip it off now, or you can see a plastic surgeon." I went, "Oh God, that was a bit like, oh my God, take it off now." I think, can I wait for a plastic surgeon? Thinking that they'll have, maybe better sewing skills. I don't know, but yes, yeah. So I was thinking, oh, please do a nice job, because I'll have a semi facelift on one side, won't I? Nice and pulled tightly, but. Yes, you would think that they were going to be good sewers, but I think they've done a great job. If you can't notice, did you notice, viewers, at all? Right, let's take a look at...
If you want, I'll see if I can get one of those pens and I'll draw a little circle around it so everyone...
you mean one of these?
The pen has become the third star of the show this season.
It has, but yes, there it is. It's not much for it to do this session, though, so I think it'll be all right. You're not going to see it much. Right, who have
draw
we
the direction of my slippers.
There we are, 4 people left.
And not to kind of, disregard their achievements, but I don't know if they are the 4 that we would have chosen maybe 5 weeks ago, to be fair. Maybe Asma, but certainly the other 3,
I think we were talking about Tony Beanie very early on, and I think over episodes 2, 3, and 4, if you remember rightly, I think we had a couple of these things sprouting out of your nose, didn't we? So whether they went on them, perhaps more Mia, not necessarily Vicky, because I think maybe in the edit she didn't come through till a couple of weeks ago. Can you remember that? Which week was it that she had a stormer of a week and started to really shine? But as you rightly said, Ting, many of them, even when we went back with Lauren and Lizzie down to the last 7 or 6, any of them could have been in the final. They were all I think
we were kind of pretty set on Asma being in the last 3 because, and not just because of that comment you've just rung out, but I think in those first 2 weeks, although she didn't win, she'd done some brilliant sewing, and it was like there's something there. But then everyone else, it was very much, they were constantly overtaking each other.
And they've all got their unique qualities. I read one of the comments last week. I can't remember who it's from. I can see her avatar, and I can't think of it. But she said how many of these sewers have their own sews, their kind of their personalities represented through their sews. You could almost spot a Tony Beanie make. You could spot a Mia make, and it's nice seeing their personalities come through. You can recognise their work for sure. And yes, so here we are, 4 people there. Really, did you think it was down to 2 people who were going to leave? Were there 2 people you thought, right, it's going to be a battle of, Ting?
I think it sounds like we're just like a broken record these last couple of weeks, but before the show started, I just figured that Asma would be safe. She's done some brilliant sewing. She's won the last couple of weeks. I figured she was going to make it through to the final. In my heart, I wanted Tony to make it through to the final. But when the show started, you could see the other 3 of them, Vicky and Mia and Tony. It was going to be who had the worst day in the sewing room.
Yes, not necessarily about skills as such. It was about who just had a flap, who put the pressure getting to them basically.
And I think, and we'll discuss this at the end again, I'm sure, but even with the 3 that have made it through, because I'm trying to keep the illusion up, doing no spoilers, but even the 3 that made it through, next week, any one of them could win if any one of the others has a bad day. Yeah. I don't think we can sit here and say it will definitely be this person or definitely be that person, where in previous years, there's always perhaps been an absolute clear runner, maybe. I still think it's all up to play for, which will make it interesting next week.
Okay, let's go on then to the first of the rounds. Get your slippers ready, everyone. The pattern challenge. It was Workwear week, which for a theme, doesn't bode well, does it,
Well,
really?
I didn't think it was workwear. It was utilitarian, wasn't it?
Well,
That's what they said. Could you not
they
spell that on the first slide?
exactly. They said it at the beginning, Workwear Week, but then Sarah kept saying that word, and it was like, yeah,
Utilitarian.
my tongue trips up with that. So let's go to the pattern picture. They had to make a trench coat, and I said to Ting
Absolutely
straight away.
ridiculous.
There we go.
Throw the slipper, get it started.
Okay. All right. Boom. There it is. I was just about to say is I really liked the trench coat because I wanted one in the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember saving up for one and getting one and being what I thought was a really cool GCSE kid into sixth form wearing my trench coat. But yes, for a make, there were so many pattern pieces.
Let me clarify. It's not a slipper being thrown about the trench coat because I think it was a really good, thing. But it's putting it in for the pattern challenge. There was 3 million bits that needed to be cut out, and then they'd have to give them an extra. There was 32. More time for the whole thing because normally it's like 2 or 3 hours for the pattern challenge, but they'd had to give them more time.
5.
And it was just like. It just seemed ridiculous for a pattern challenge. And I think we made the comment later on, and we'll come back to it probably when there's another slipper arcing through the room, is that actually it would have been a good one to swap. Well, not necessarily even swap, but to swap with the made to measure because the this would have been good for them to use for the third challenge, I feel, rather than 32 pieces that you're getting given there and then. So they all had to be cut out as well. That's why it took so long.
Yeah. Oh, a huge amount of work. I don't know how they did it.
No, I mean they looked good and they did well. All of them did well. Even Vicky, even though she got the buttons on the wrong way, they all did relatively well in that time frame, given what it was. But I just felt that for a pattern challenge where you are getting it for the first time and you've got to cut it all out, 32 pieces was ridiculous. Especially when you go back to Children's Week and we had a dress that had, 5, 6 pieces into it?
And we know, because we've talked about this before, the belt and those belt loops, that work in itself. But it's just... Yeah. Well, let's get the picture up of what they did. There it is. 4 finished. They all finished trench coats, which is a marvel. Most had the same issue, as you can see there, the buttons. But that's because of the time. They've had to quickly try and fit them on. And if you haven't got one of those cool button gauges, you're going to get that like here. You got wonky donkey, haven't you, there and down here and down there. And also, they don't give them the space. They're on the floor trying to work out where the buttons are. But we have got there. Well, let's look at them. I've got one-off shots to go through because there's only 4, isn't there? So let's go to. There's Asma's.
Good, excellent. Good. It doesn't give it justice. Excellent piece of sewing. Buttons were a little bit wonky on it. I don't know whether that compared to me. Yeah, it was a good piece of sewing. She'd managed to do it. I suppose, we're sitting here moaning on their behalf about what they were asked to do, but she managed to do it in the time.
Indeed. It looked beautiful.
I don't think it's a pleasurable sew for anyone.
Yeah. Look at this close-up I've got here of her collar. Look at no under collar showing. Got it positioned right. You can see that lovely fabric, can't you? And the top stitching. It was wonderful. The only thing I saw compared to everyone else's, and if we go back to the group here, I don't know whether this was picked up at all. The storm flap, that seam, that diagonal seam there, everyone's diagonal seam is lovely and flat, but then Asma's got like a big roll of fabric there. There seemed like a lot of excess. So when you go to that picture there, you can kind of see it there. And that was just But that might have been because it was not on the mannequin properly, for all we know.
Well, they did talk about how it was complicated
Yeah.
to insert the sleeves, because you've got to get them angled right so that they end up hanging at the right angle. But so it could have been something to do with that. But and nothing against Asma, but they've kind of locked on to her that being a good sewer, which she is.
Yeah.
So she seems to be able to get away with it a little bit more. Whereas, okay, Vicky's was a car crash, but even Mia's and Tony's, they were picking over little things.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Mia's then. And
it's a lovely colour.
It is. It just worked so well. And I think they picked. Did they pick on her buttons as well? I'm just looking at my notes.
I think they went after everyone's buttons, didn't they?
No, it was the sleeves. They don't. They actually don't seem very wonky at all there. But yes, it was the set-in sleeve a bit. Was it angled wrong? Because I think there was a bit of going on.
Gathering at the top there.
Up there, but she is a very, very good sewer. Do you know what? You remember, I think it must have been about 4 or 5 weeks ago when I said Tony Beanie is incredibly chilled. He's like, yeah, man, yeah, all right, mate, yeah, we can do this. He never seems to get really bothered. I have never seen Mia stressed. She's incredibly laid back and chilled.
Taking it in a stride, I suppose.
Absolutely. And then let's go to, that's a close-up. Look at that again, that collar and that top stitching. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. Tony.
I liked it. I think he's chosen a good colour again for it. I like the fact that he's kind of used a bit of an accent button on there as well.
Yeah.
And, generally, he did quite well. I was shocked where they placed him. But I suppose, with only the 4, there wasn't much choice. I mean, he didn't deserve to come bottom, I suppose. But, yeah, I thought he'd done well as well.
He was second. Yeah, they obviously liked that more than Mia's, but I thought Mia's was better than that one. But
yeah,
especially as they were saying about his pucker on the sleeve there, and then as I showed you here, the top, the under collar has been pushed, and I know when I was making my shirt, you have to do something with the way you cut the under collar and the way you sew it, so that bottom, so you don't get your lips, your duck lips, to stop that from happening. So for him to get second rather than third was, interesting. Let us know what you think, viewers. And then we have Vicky.
Which I felt for her, because it is that thing about, I've put the buttons on the wrong way. I mean, you'd argue then that it changes gender, doesn't it, depending on which way it's being done up.
The flat.
But then to make it worse is then the buttons didn't line up, and then everything looks like it's shifted. Yeah. And I just thought if it looked kind of perfect, but the only thing wrong was the buttons, I would have been a bit more in defense of her. But the fit just wasn't right as well. It wasn't just because the flat was round the wrong way and she'd put the buttons in the wrong place. The whole thing, they just didn't fit. Look at all those ripples.
Well, and that was what Patrick was saying. Because the buttons were out of sync, you're technically pulling fabric up, or you're squishing it and stretching it.
He was doing it both. It was being pulled up in one direction, rooted in the other.
So we've got Asma first in what do you call that? Lilac? Is it a lilac mauve or blue? Pale blue?
It looks blue there, yeah.
Tony was second, Mia was third, and Vicky was fourth. And this is where I'm debating, should that have been, or was it just so close? So you've got to have a ranking, haven't you? But
yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the transformation challenge. We're on one slipper so far, maybe more to come.
Yeah, throw one at this one straight away. Let's not hold back.
So the transformation challenge was
rubbish.
Let me get my. Oh, why is that not working now? My buttons. Right, let's get the group up. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Oh.
No, that was it.
No, it was here. Oh, there we go. They had a variety of cleaning products and stuff in the haberdashery and tabards, and it was to. Oh, and I rewrote it down because I was like, I'm going to throw a slipper at the brief alone. Patrick said to transform an array of cleaning products into a stylish garment. And then Esme, after Patrick said you could use tabards and stuff from haberdashery, Esme goes and want 3D, not just stuff on the back and the front. And she said, experiment with what you find to make an ingenious garment. So we've got Patrick wanting a stylish garment, and then Esme saying, I want an ingenious garment. What's the difference between a stylish and ingenious? I think quite a lot.
Well, and also, we're back to the transformation challenge again about does it need to be wearable or not? Or are you designing something? Because, as we'll see in a moment, with Mia's dress, they turned around and went, oh, well, you can't wear that. And it's like, well, no, you wouldn't wear it. It's made out of rubber gloves, you silly people. But it was like, oh, you can't wear it because it's too short. It's like, well, you couldn't have worn any of the transformation challenges from the whole series. Well, so either it's wearable or it's not.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Because... well, there you can see them there, and this is what we're talking about. Mia's. I
mean, I thought it was a good use of the rubber gloves, and maybe if you put another couple round the back to kind of keep a bit of modesty going. But again, it was that inconsistency with the judging, because actually that's very flat. It's not. Yeah. It's not 3D. Yeah. It's just rubber gloves that have been stretched around the model. It's not 3D, and yet Tony, who wrapped tabards around his model, got told off for it being flat. And it's like, well, Mia's is flat. Just because it was made out of rubber gloves doesn't make it any better.
And also, then, what do you also say to what's ingenious? Is that stylish? Or ingenious? I think that fan is ingenious, but Mia's could also be ingenious, but not stylish.
Well, you could say the same about Tony's, and then Asma's. I mean, God knows what that is, but just because she managed to match the colours, they were fawning all over it, and they were like, "Oh, it's got the scouring pads on." It's like, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it seemed to me that, and let's put Aspen there, that they were loving the idea that Aspen used scouring pads as pom-poms. Well, what else would you use them for? They're round. They're going to be pom-poms. It's not like that clever, is it?
Well, no, I suppose if you had more than 90 minutes, you could have pulled them apart a bit and flattened them out and used them in a different way. But yeah, given the time frame, you're not going to do anything other than just sew them on like pom-poms.
There's the close-up. So let's go through the close-ups. There's Asma's. Yeah, stylish, ingenious, maybe ingenious with the sleeves, clever.
Well, I think I said to you, it just looks like a pantomime dame's outfit.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't necessarily see Asma out wearing that.
No,
that just looks like something you'd see on stage.
Well, Widow Twanky for Aladdin, isn't it? She comes on in her laundry. Absolutely. Let's go on to Mia's. There it is. Ingenious.
Well, it's just rubber gloves, isn't it? Actually, I was struggling to work out what it was. But yeah, that's all it is. And then you think, well, yeah, actually is ingenious.
It's the fact that let's now look at Tony's. Let's get rid of that. Oh, there's Tony's. Get button happy now.
Yeah.
Oh, where's... Sorry, everyone. My buttons. There's Tony's. It's the fact that they then said, was this put in, the wrong place? Well, I know there's an innuendo.
Had to cover the modesty, didn't it?
Exactly.
And he matched the colours so the toning went all the way through. He's wrapped the tabard, so they're not hanging shapeless. He's wrapped it round.
Yeah.
And then he's put that on, because he did start off with something that was slightly different, and then he unpicked it, and then he's put that in. So you kind of can see where he's got. I mean, it's not a flapper dress, but it's heading that way with a bit of fringing and stuff like that. You can see what he was trying to do. He didn't just use the one tabard; he used the two and pulled it round. I just felt that, then they went for him on that. And I was like, hang on, are you really looking at the other three? And then the one that they were fawning all over with all the pleats, Vicky's, I was like, well, she's just pleated a tabard.
That's it. we say just. Is that good for 90 minutes in a transformation
Oh, yes, it
challenge?
is. That
But
is good because it's not an easy thing to do. But
no.
I think, again, going back to, is it wearable? Is it, oh, you've made this fabric, you've woven this fabric, you've pleated all that. And and it is a standout thing, you
Yeah.
know, especially if you compare it to Mia's and Tony's and
Yeah.
even a little bit to Asma. And that's where it's not clear over what they're actually trying to produce.
Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously the judging to see Tony get a little bit penalised because of that bit compared to Mia's, where you've got everything showing
You've got
there.
everything on show. The whole world's your gynecologist.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, that was only one slip of thrown there. I thought you might have thrown a few more, but
Well, it was one was enough for the whole concept. Let's be reasonable.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the made to measure, which I think might cause a lot of discussions because how many times have we said? Well, how many times have we said the made to measure is that it's a garment that's made to measure, and is a boiler suit made to measure?
Well, so I was furious last night when we were messaging after we got through the whole WhatsApp debacle last night, and I was furious at it because it's supposed to be made to measure.
Yeah.
And a boiler suit, when have you ever, if a boiler suit fits you, the minute you bend over, you're going to rip the arse out of it. So it's not, a boiler suit is not made to measure.
No.
No. And so, but then on reflection, I sat there and I was thinking about Vicky, and I'm not criticising because if you've seen the size of me, fair enough. But her model was much bigger than the other three's models. So Vicky actually did have to make hers fit because her model proportions were bigger. And the other three had models where you could make a basic boiler suit, and like Asma did, she put a belt round it to make it fit. She didn't make it fit and hang on its own. And it was the same with the other two as well, where Vicky's model, she had quite wide hips.
Let's go to it. Hang on. Let's go to it. There's no point waiting.
She had to make it fit more than the others did. I don't think she did her any favours. I don't think those legs coming down straight did much. But her model was a different size to all the others. Yes. And I know she's had the same model throughout, and that's fine. And I don't have a problem with the size of the model. But Vicky, therefore, had a lot more work to do to make it fit.
Well, it's good, isn't it, that they're doing inclusivity, size inclusive, wonderful. But how is that then when you're judging?
Comparable. That's what I'm annoyed about. It's not comparable. They didn't all four of them didn't have the same situation.
Yeah.
And I know that's why it's called made to measure, because you make it to fit your model. But it just felt that Vicky had a lot more work to do to make it fit her model due to the different proportions than the other three had to worry about.
Should they have said on the brief for making a boiler suit, which I know they did, they cut away later and they were talking with Patrick and Esme, and they had some things about the trendy boiler suit that Emma Thompson was wearing, then that should have been the brief, shouldn't it? It should have been a fashionable, fitted, high fashion boiler suit, not like what then, which I would have made.
This is where the confusion crept in, because it's like, are you making a boiler suit? And like Tony chose a man's boiler suit as a pattern there, which is fine. He's a man as well. But he chose a man's boiler suit. It was very utilitarian, like the title said.
Yeah.
And even the same with Vicky's that we've just looked at. But actually, given that this is the sewing bee with fashion, you've got models, it's made to measure. You want to keep it an even judging so that everyone has to work with the same things. So why not turn it into like a jumpsuit? They've been all the things, all in one jumpsuit, a boiler suit that has effectively been made to fit fashion wise, and that's what Asma's looked like. She'd used a lovely bit of fabric with a bit of glitter in it, and then she'd tarted it up in various areas. I feel that should have been the brief, whereas there seemed to be a little confusion over whether they're making a boiler suit that you'll go and fix your plumbing with, or whether it was something high fashion. And again, that was why the initial slipper went flying, because they're not being clear enough. And I felt that although they were going with workwear, utilitarian, whatever you want to say, it should have been more fashion than,
Yeah.
can I come and fix your boiler?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go alphabetical. We've touched on them already, but yes, let's start with asthma there.
The little touches were brilliant. The clasps over the pockets. It was all well thought out. But this
Stunning.
one seemed more high fashion than the others did.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That was her interpretation of the brief.
No, but
I felt that the brief should have been that for everyone.
Yes, it came across that they favoured the high fashion, the glamour, the fabric more than Tony's. And they probably didn't, because they have 2 hours. I know they only show us like 30 seconds of the marking. They're probably marking, good hour, critiquing it, looking at it in detail. But it came across that way, didn't it? It's like, well, now Tony's probably hearing, them gush over Asma's fabric and her cool clasps and how it looked Chanel-like, and thinking, well, damn, well, I could have done that had you said that, but I thought you wanted pockets, workwear, boiler suit. But it is, I look at that sewing, look at it. Look at the pockets.
You cannot fault the sewing with Asma. Well, yet again, the precision was wonderful.
I know they had a slight nitpick, and I think everyone did, but that is the whole made to measure.
Going back to my point, how fitted is it? Because she's whacked a belt round it, and it doesn't fit her bum there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was outstanding piece of sewing, and she's done really well. And she has, but from made to measure task, this was not enough This was not enough measure. Let's put it that way.
Let's go to thanks, Asma. Let's go to Mia. And clever with the pattern fabric, because then when you do your patches, Wolf often said you don't want to pattern match pattern fabric, do you?
No. So I mean, it depends whether you think I'm angry enough to throw another slipper. Because in a previous series, they would have torn them to shreds for not pattern matching. Think back when they did the lumberjack shirts and they decided to move it so it went the other way, and then they tore an absolute strip off them. And
memory.
Part of me was go Mia, sticking up for yourself, because she turned around and said, "Oh, life's too short for pattern matching," which is fine, and it is fine. And I suppose the pattern is enough there for you not to notice that it's not matched too much. It's almost pattern matched, to be fair. But at the same time, in another guise, they would have gone, "Oh, you've not matched your patterns. You've not done all of this." And a good sewer would match the patterns.
Really, even on something like this, because I think
don't you remember?
If you pattern match that, you lose the pocket. Do you want to see the pocket? I would, because so you therefore not pattern match.
No, if you remember Janet. She pattern matched everything on all of her things because she's a traditional sewer, and you would pattern match it. I don't think that having the pockets stand out, because again, we've got the blurred lines of is it fashion, is it whatever. Even if you are saying it's fashion, I'd still want the pattern to match, because you're not fumbling around trying to find your pen so you can write out your dodgy bill for how much the boiler's got for service. I would have just made sure it matched.
Yeah.
It wasn't a difficult pattern to match either.
And how many? This is workwear. How many pockets were on there? 2 pockets.
And it was the 2. Did she put them on? I can't remember.
Did she have them on the leg?
I thought she had them on the leg as well.
Oh right, take that back then. That's good. Yeah,
I can't remember. It's not clear from there, is it?
Okay, let's move on then to
Tony. And again, there was a belt on there, so easy fit.
Yeah,
let's whack a belt round.
Yeah, Tony was down that classic boiler suit. I loved it really, but then I would
pockets on pockets. He did,
yeah.
But again, that's because he made something to work in. It wasn't necessarily high fashion.
No, this is where sometimes the briefs are just too wide. It's like, well, they're both excellent for either boiler wear or for high fashion.
Yeah,
but if it was
you can't really tart that up anyway. You know,
No.
you could. I mean, you could wear it. I mean, like he's got the shorter sleeves. You could argue maybe you could have a shorter leg or something like that. Whack a belt round it and cinch the waist, and you've got something that could be fashiony. You know, to a point. But that wasn't the clear brief that they had to do, and he would have made something very different because he did say this is a man's boiler suit because they criticised for how low the zip went.
Well, that's right.
He was very open that was the pattern he'd used.
Yeah, I've got a picture here of, I've called it Zipgate, because Esme said, "Oh, I wouldn't have had it down to there." Now, if you look, it's just below that pocket. So let's go back to the wide shot. So you can see the zip ending in there. Well, that's not long. Where would she want the zip to have finished? That would have been up her belly button.
Well, I suppose for a woman, it's not as necessary for it to be as low as that.
But he's following a pattern, isn't he? Made to measure, or should he have made it to? I don't know. It's just those little things just get frustrating because you just think. If I was Tony there, I'd be thinking, oh, they're gushing over the high end, you know, the classy Emma Thompson style boiler suit, but I've made a boiler suit, and I'd be gutted.
Yeah, I've done what I was asked, and suddenly it's now not enough.
With some exquisite sewing, the orange, the pop. Yes, I know they made the comment about top stitching. He had great top stitching, but he didn't have the thickness of the thread. Well, I felt like they're saying, well, did you have the orange thread in the haberdashery? Because they prep all the extra sewing stuff for them. They've got all the orange already prepped in the overlockers. Also, did they not have the orange thicker thread for top stitching?
But it's one of those things. It's where the diagram, and didn't he do the dress? Oh, I get confused with the different suits, but he did the thing that this is not a dress, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I said to you at the time that the whole point of it being in black on black is that when you get close to that, you get something different. And it was the same with this. From a distance, it's a boiler suit. And then as you get closer and closer, and you then start to see the orange stitching, which you wouldn't see until you were much closer, that's when you pick the detail out. Yeah. I think that is a really good thing to do. Whereas they go, oh, well, you can't see it. Well, no, you're not going to see it. I can't see your top stitching from the other side of the room either. It doesn't matter what colour it's in. You know, the whole point is that you get a different facet. You know, it's like if you're looking at a diamond or a ruby and it moves and it catches the light.
Yeah.
It's the same with it. You get closer to it. You then see the orange. You see the top stitching. You see the delicate detail on whatever it is. And that should be applauded, where they kind of went at it with disdain. And it's like, well, yeah, it shouldn't be fluorescent orange that you can see standing 30 miles away. It should be a detail that becomes clearer as you walk closer to that garment.
And this is where our point was. This should have been the pattern challenge, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should have been a pattern challenge. They were made exactly the same boiler suit, and they, you know, maybe could then put some different trims and that on or whatever if they wanted to. But it should have been a basic boiler suit, and it would have been an easier pattern than 30 odd pieces for a trench coat.
Because, as you say, this is not made to measure. You can see the excess fabric. It's not made to measure because it's not supposed to be. Because it's a boiler suit.
You're supposed to be putting in your boilers.
Yeah, reaching up. Yeah, bending down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, torn. Yeah, right. Thanks,
Very
Tony.
Improved,
And Vicky, which we have talked about. So she's gone for the Emma Thompson boiler suit look again.
But, I mean, okay, forget the model because, you know, you've got your model in front of you. You can be able to make it fit. But just look at it. It looks like, and I can't remember because actually it's not when we were kids, but there was some kids program with like these big things that were just straight down and everything. There's no shape to that whatsoever. Those legs come down like trunks because she's not tapered them in any way. So that's not flattering the model. So even though she had a slightly larger model, she's done nothing to flatter the figure of the model and make her look vaguely attractive. But is that because she made an orange boiler suit?
Well, I was about to say, is this not perfect utilitarian? Is this
exactly?
Is this just there's everyone is the same? There's it's just down like that, and does that not fit the brief better?
Well, but this
for
is the
workwear.
But then you look at it, even compared to the other three, you only have to look at it to go that it's awful before you even start picking at whether it had a hungry bum, whether it was
There you go.
hemmed properly, whether the collar was put on properly. Just the overall silhouette, and we've talked about silhouettes before, even with the transformation challenge. It just doesn't look very good as a pattern.
No,
Look at it.
it's almost like, I don't know, like a shirt's been added to a pair of trousers.
Yeah. And again, if it had been clearer as being like a fashion forward kind of boiler suit, jumpsuit thing, I think she would have made it more flattering. It would have had shorter arms. It probably would have been open a little bit more, you know, and could have had the bits and pieces that Asma had on hers as well. But, you know, she seems to have fallen foul partly to interpreting it as, I need to make a boiler suit.
Interesting to know what their brief was, you know, when they originally got it, because that is workwear boiler suit, isn't it? Nothing fancy.
Whereas Asma interpreted it differently because she obviously went and bought all those silver clasps. Now, you would argue that Asma's is not workwear. That was a glittery fabric. It had all the silver buckles and everything. That's health and safety waiting to happen. You'd have the health and safety executive cutting you down. Whereas at least this one, Vicky would be able to crawl through the pipes and sort out the problems.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. Can you remember the what project was it where they had to do workwear, and then they took away the thing, and yes, it was just a boring blouse and a boring skirt, and then they gave them
series. That was this series. It was 4 episodes ago, where they pulled out a model that was wearing like a Marks and Spencer's uniform.
Yeah,
and then when they cut away, the table had every colour you wanted under the sun.
Yeah. Right.
I think Betty's been on acid coming up with these challenges. For this.
Well, she's getting her Strictly hat ready, isn't she? In a month's time.
She's getting all nervous. They'll start announcing those celebrities in August.
Right, so we're up to 3 slippers there. Who went home? Oh no, sorry, garment of the week first. Yeah. I'm all over the place. Wow. Garment of the week. Yeah, we knew it was phenomenal.
Which you can't dispute it, and I don't hate it.
No,
I just think the whole program and the tasks brief and everything and the judging, this culminated, and it was, you know, the semi-final here, it culminated in an awful week.
Who went home, as we know?
Well, if you haven't worked it out from our analysis, because we didn't want any spoilers, but I think we may have tipped the scales.
Yeah. Vicky.
And she just had a bad week. Apart from that transformation challenge, which they bizarrely loved, but she struggled with the Mac, she struggled with the boiler suit, so you can't really come back from that, really.
No, and so there we have it. So let's go to here. Oh, let's say goodbye to Vicky. So there's our final. There's our final. Everyone, is your sewer that you've been looking at for the last 9 weeks in that? Give us a comment below. And then who is it? Write in the comments, because obviously we think we know who's going to win, but who do you want to win? That might be different. I think Asma will win, but there's something about having Tony win. Go on.
But there is the thing which has taken out Vicky this week. It took out Lizzie the other week. Any one of those, and especially, you know, with Asma as well, you have a bad week next week.
Yeah.
That cannot be, you cannot be forgiven for that. You can't turn around and say, well, you know, you've done really well in the other 9 weeks, so you should still win. You know, if Asma has a bad week, then one of the other two are going to take it, I feel. But that's not because I don't like Asma or don't think she should have it.
No, it's just
good. I think she should win. I think her sewing has been impeccable. Yeah. And if she doesn't win, we may see a barrage of slippers going. Because as much as I love Tony, and even Mia has warmed my heart, you know, as time has gone on, Asma has been consistent and, you know, was overlooked because she didn't win initially. She was always second or something like that. And then it's only in these last couple of weeks she's got Garment of the Week consistently. So if she doesn't win, there is an element of that. But if she has a bad week, then it's either of the other two. I can't even say, oh, well, it'll be Mia or it'll be Tony. It will be who has a good week
Yeah.
if Asma
Yeah.
has a bad week.
Because they are all good enough sewers to win,
To
aren't
be
they?
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're all good
absolutely.
enough to be in the final. Yeah.
So there we have it. It's pretty much the end, isn't it? And if you have been watching Unpicked for the last 3 years with us, you know what happens on semi-final week at the end. We do a little competition. And that competition is for you viewers. Hence why we keep it at the end for the people who are still watching to the bitter end. And so therefore not everyone could just suddenly come on and write in the comments to try and win. It's to thank you that those of you keep coming back, not only watching, but also commenting and joining in. So let's go to the competition. And this is what you've got to do. How many slippers were chucked by Ting for Series 9? I have it all totaled up in my little book here. You already know it's not...
We've got at least 3.
You are to write it in the comments how many you think. You just got to put it in the comments. And then, get this, everybody. Next week, we're going to be live. Yes, completely live. We record this live. It doesn't get any editing unless like the internet breaks down. But we are going to be live on YouTube. So we can have you chatting absolutely live in the comments. We can get your comments up like I do here where we put things on the screen. So when we're on this page here and I do this, that sort of thing, we can do that, but with your live YouTube comments. As we talk about the final, we talk about all 3 rounds. So that's going to be great. And then on that show, we will do a live picker of all the people who have got the right answers. So if 5 of you get the right amount of slippers that have been chucked, then you will be in the draw. We'll spin it live and you will win lots of fabric. Now, there is a little caveat there. Shipping costs to America and to New Zealand and to wherever you are, because I know there are many of you all around the world. I don't think I can go to that amount. So this is what we're going to do. There will be a prize for people who are in the UK. So if your name is picked and you're in the UK, you will have loads of fabric. I've got loads of fabric left over in my shop because I've got rid of fabric. So that's going to come your way. If you are in the other side of the world, then you are going to have a Merchant and Mills digital pattern of your choice. I will pay for it and then email it to you, and then you can have a sewing pattern from the fabulous Merchant and Mills. I know many of you have used them and you've sewn up their patterns. So we can treat you wherever you are if you win, no matter where you are. Okay, so bit of fun. How many slippers were chucked by Ting this season? Type it in the comments, as well as your generic comments. Do you agree with us about the briefs? We love the show. We do love it. There aren't many sewing shows about, but it's just perhaps the production side that gets us wound up. So are you with Flygate and Tony's boiler suits with that brief issue there? What do you think of the whole idea of the trench coat as well? Even though, yes, they made them all. It is phenomenal, isn't it, Ting? When you think about what they've made this week, it still is phenomenal, isn't it?
Oh, and that's what we can't take away from. I think, even with Vicky going, all of their sewing is it's phenomenal, and they are working under these ridiculous constraints. And there does come a point
to make
where
television,
the production company has to stop and look at what they're doing, and taking into account not me and you, because no one listens to us, but the viewer is getting more and more frustrated.
Yes,
at ridiculous challenges and speed sewing. We want to see people show off their skills. We don't want to see people show off their skills in 2 hours, 5 minutes. We want something that is genuinely good to watch. If I want all the high drama, I'll go and watch a stupid reality program like Love Island, which I'd rather gouge my eyes out with a crochet hook. But don't, take it back to what it was.
Yeah. It is
and
very
appreciate what all of these people can do.
Yeah.
Because they're all brilliant.
Well, all brilliant for their own rights. Thinking about Mia, who learned,
Yeah.
got the sewing machine from her mother, got them a sewing machine, and mother did some sewing and gave up, what did she say, within a couple of hours, and Mia took over.
But even
All of
Tony,
it.
you know, like Tony said at one point, and I can't remember exactly what it was. He's like, "I've never done this. I've never put in. I don't know if it was an invisible zip or whatever it was."
Oh,
and you know,
bias
he's been
binding,
able
wasn't
to
it?
do that. Their skills are phenomenal, and what's ruining it is turning it into a speed sewing program,
Yes.
and that's not what it should be.
No, I was frustrated when Patrick was giving Mia some feedback on her trench coat, and he went, "Oh, it's not pressed." Well, you're kidding, right? You've given me 5 hours to make a trench
and
coat,
37 pieces to cut out,
and you've now assessed me on that it wasn't pressed. Well, if in the assessment criteria it was to be pressed, I would have finished 10 minutes earlier and pressed it for you, Patrick. But yes, you're completely right. Yeah, readdress those, please, production team, because we love the show, and clearly many people love the show. The messages we're getting from people in the US saying, we want it here, we wish we had it here, and they're watching our show because we can give them pictures. Yeah. We love it. But yes, well, there we are. Just a quick recap. Let us know if you want to do the competition, how many slippers Ting has chucked this season. Type it there.
And it includes these three. It includes these
yes,
three.
Don't forget. And it's 1 entry per person. Don't go, right, 10, and then do another comment, 11, and another comment, 12, and another comment, 30, to try and...
You'll only take your first answer, none of the others.
And then we look forward to chatting with you live next week.
At 8 o'clock.
8 p.m.
Yeah.
8 p.m.
Next
live.
Thursday.
We can't wait. It's going to be brilliant and a great way to wrap up the season, having that conversation with you live as we then put the Sewing Bee Series 9 to bed for another year. Then we're going to go and sit down, aren't we, Ting?
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. And look forward to seeing you next week for the grand final. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.